Hello, this is Gary at Bushcraft. Thank you for watching our video. This week I'm going to talk about using fungus as a tinder. Before I start talking about using fungus as a tinder, I just wanted to go over a couple of rules, if you like, that I kind of try to get across to our students when it comes to natural tinders. So, and I've said this before on previous videos around natural tinders. First up, you need to experiment with things. So if you're out wandering around through the woods and you see something and you think, I wonder if that will work as a tinder, well, give it a try. Take a lighter to it, see if it goes up, and if it does, then well, collect a bit more, take it home, and you can practice with all of the various ignition methods. So you could try to find out, will it light with a fire steel, a traditional flint and steel, with a lens, with a parabolic mirror and a fire piston, all of these things. So that's the first thing, just experiment. Second one is around being an opportunist. So as you see a tinder, collect it. Don't wait until you need to light a fire and then think, I'm going to go off and find some tinder now. You need to get in the habit of, well, I call it tinder constipation. So don't pass a source of tinder. So don't walk past the birch tree without taking some bark off it. If you find a fungus, as you're walking past, put it in your pocket, take it with you. So just to reiterate, experiment with these things, develop tinder constipation. So in terms of natural tinders, there's fungus as a natural tinder. There's a few things out there that we can use. First one I'm going to look at here. Now I have done videos previously around how to ignite a King Alfred's cake. So that's what I've got in this little box. So this is a King Alfred's cake. You're going to find these growing on dead ash. Another name for them is cramp ball. And essentially it looks like a piece of coal stuck to a dead ash. And ordinarily what I would do is just go along to it, kind of give it a flick. And if it sounds like this one, sort of solid and robust, it probably is solid and robust, and it's probably good to be good to go. If you kind of flick it and it feels a bit squidgy, it probably is a bit squidgy, which means it's wet and isn't going to be of much use to you. So these are fantastic fire starters. You can light these with a traditional flint and steel, with a fire steel. You could put it in a fire piston. Could go into you could light it with a parabolic mirror, with a lens. So lots of options there in terms of your ignition method. What it does is glow. So you're going to get a little red ember glowing in there. So it's not going to give you a flame. You get that ember in it, and then that needs to go into a tinder bundle, and then you could take your tinder bundle and do that kind of thing and blow it into a flame. Now we get lots and lots of these around here. Well, we've always got lots of them around here. Moving forward, we are likely to be getting many more, unfortunately, because our woodland has been affected by ash dieback. So yeah, these King Alfred's cake, absolutely fantastic to add into your fire lighting kit. Really useful. So this next one I've got, these are some pieces of chaga. So chaga typically grows on birch. So there's a couple of things around this before I go any further with chaga. So I frequently see on various social media platforms people kind of asking, is this this chaga. So the first kind of thing that you can do to sort of figure that out is just where are you in the country, because if you're down south, it won't be, basically. So it grows up birch, but it needs to be much colder. So I've never found any down south at all. My strong suspicion is you need to start getting up to Scotland really to be able to find it. Now what often happens is that people mistake a burl on a birch. So it's formed by or created by a fungal infection, and you do get this kind of protuberance on the side of a birch. But there are many of them, and so basically don't start sawing into it because there's a very good chance it won't be chaga. This piece, this is a small bit from a much bigger piece I've got. It's kind of about that size, so they can get quite sizable. This black colouring on the outside, that is what it looks like. So I haven't charred this up at all. It just looks like it's been charred up. And then on the inside, we've got this kind of golden brownish colour going on. So these you can light in the same way as you would a King Alfred's cake, essentially. So this you could light with a fire steel, traditional flint and steel, parabolic mirror, lens, fire pistons. So again, it's another very useful fungus to be able to add into your fire lighting kit. But if you're down south, then yeah, you're really probably not going to find these. Another one that we find growing on birch is this. So this is a birch polypore. This is it's not a particularly big one. They grow this way, so horizontally, like so, and these you're going to find grown out of dead birch. And quite often you can find a row of them going all the way up the tree. Now, in my experience, birch tend to rot out pretty quickly. So from dying to just completely rotting away is quite a short space of time. And so I've found birch in the past with polypores growing up on them, and I've literally just poked it and the whole thing's fell over. So you need to be wary when you approach them. What I found with this, so I've tried many a way to get this to ignite and haven't got anywhere with it. But what does work is if you char the thing. So in the same way you would make char cloth. And I have got a video. I'll add a link in later to how to char a polypore, and it comes out looking like this. These are really good. Once they're charred up, they take a spark really easily. So again, this one's got a light with a fire steel, traditional flint and steel, a lens, a mirror, fire piston, that kind of thing. So someone asked me a question back along about, well, why if you've got a birch polypore, then clearly you're going to have found birch as well. So why not just use the bark from the birch to light your fire? And it's a really good point. Birch bark is definitely a kind of go-to in terms of lighting your fire. There's two things that come into play, I guess, here. One is what ignition source do you have with you? So if you've got a fire still or you've got a lighter or a match, then absolutely crack on onto your birch bark, that's going to go up. If all you had was a fire piston, then you're not going to be able to use that to light your birch bark. So different tinders work with different ignition sources, so you kind of need to bear that in mind. The other thing I'd suggest is that your first fire should always be the most difficult one. So you light a fire, and then once that fire is going, you use it to help prepare for your next fire. So that might be that you find a load of inner bark, but it's wet. So you can use your fire to dry that out. So the next time around, you've got that resource with you. You could use your fire to char this stuff, so that next time around you've got that ready to go with you. So be thinking about okay, I've got a fire going now, but what can I do to make life easier for myself in the future? What can I do to prepare to make sure that my next fire is going to be easier? So just bear in mind those couple of things. I find these absolutely everywhere because birch is our second most common tree in the British Isles anyway. You know, it's really quite straightforward to find the polypores to go with them. Next up here I have a hoof fungus, and it's quite clear why it's called a hoof fungus. It does look very much like a horse's hoof. Again, we tend not to get too much of this down south. You need to start moving further north to be able to find them. Now there's a few things that you can do with these. So the simplest thing that you can do, I'll just open my little pot. The simplest thing you can do is basically cut it so that you get this very thin slice, and then I could just use my knife to fluff that up, get a nice little pile of fluffiness going on there with it, and then I could light that with a fire steel. So that's really quite straightforward to do. The other thing you could do is make some amadou. So this is just a tiny little piece of amadou I have here. So it takes more processing to make amadou. You need to it needs to be boiled in nitrate essentially. But this stuff is, again, it's really, really flammable. And then lastly, again, you could char it up. So that's a couple of different mushrooms I've talked about charring now, and it is something that I intend to experiment with a little more later in the year. So collecting other types of mushroom and seeing what happens when I char them. But yeah, with our hoof fungus, 3 options there. We could just thin slice, turn it into amadou, char it. Now, what I've got here, actually, strictly speaking, this isn't a fungus. This is punkwood. So punkwood is what's left behind when dry rot has gone through a piece of wood, essentially. So this, I mean, it is, it's hard to describe, but it is super lightweight. It's almost like a piece of sponge. What I've found with it is get it crumbled up into almost a powder form. You can see as I crumble it, actually the wind just blows that away. That's how it really is light. But get it crumbled up and then take a spark to it, and up it will go. I find this all the time. It's one of those things that if you set out trying to find, you're probably not going to, but if you're just wandering around, it's the kind of thing that you just spot as you go along, and it just kind of goes back to this thing I was saying about being an opportunist. If you as you find it, grab it, stick it in your pocket. I have also in the past taken punkwood and charred it. So again, this goes up really, really well, this little tin of charred punkwood here. With that, I could hold my traditional flint and steel, just hold it over the top of the tin, hold the steel part still, and just bring the stone onto it so that the sparks drop downwards. And then as soon as the bit ignites, I can just pull it out. And again, it's just going to go into my tinder bundle. As always, when I'm talking about natural tinders, my collection is far from exhaustive. It's not complete by any stretch of the imagination. It's just what I've found and tried so far. So there are others out there, undoubtedly, and I intend to continue with that experimenting to see what else I can find. And I would strongly encourage you to do the same. You get that experimenting, that trying things out, that understanding which tinders which work with which ignition sources, that kind of thing, that's really going to help to develop your bushcraft skill set. So I hope you found that to be of use. We will aim to get more content out next week. In the meantime, take care, stay safe.